Today we're going to invite Richard Beere and Craig Wickham to the stage for a really short discussion on how in their areas which were hit by the fires, they've recovered and how they're coming through it. So Richard Beere is currently the chair of Destination Southern New South Wales, and I'm sure is well known to many of you. Richard has spent nearly half his professional life working and living in Asia in management positions within the tourism industry, including 23 years with Tourism Australia. Craig Wickham is the owner and operator of exceptional Kangaroo Island. Having grown up on that amazing part of Australia, he's always had a strong interest in the environment and tourism. So Craig, who has run his family-owned business for the past 30 years, is also the chair of Australian Wildlife Journeys. So Richard and Craig, thank you for joining us. We're going to keep it short and just ask a couple of questions, but Craig, let's start with you. So in KI, it was really badly impacted by the fires. Can you tell us a bit about how you, I guess, ultimately use this opportunity to adapt, as you've had to the new market and focus on domestic?
Yeah, I guess for us, the fires burnt 42% of the land surface, so we looked at what's the flip side of that? 58% was not burned. So focus on what we can do and really communicate that. We made a really important decision straight after the fires. No stock shots, no existing footage, all new, hashtag after the fires, time, date stamp. So we were trying to regain confidence in our destination post-fire. And I guess part of that really was starting to generate some new content with video, with new images, with we switched to the side of the island which was unburned. So I think quite ironically, we look back and say the bushfires and the adaptation which was forced upon us as a destination, and not just us, not just KI, but so many communities around Australia, that set us up for COVID. So we're in that round of what can we do, what's positive, what storytelling can we do, how can we connect with people, what are the ways where we can continue to celebrate the experiences which are out there. And I really want to just say thank you very much to the industry, the Australian community and our international community for the support which was provided to Australia generally, and the empathy for, particularly around the wildlife piece. We've had ongoing interest in that as far as how's the recovery going, what are the positive stories, where are we back to there, and that's continuing to create interest, benefit. And I think Australians are really wanting to know, we hear about Australia is resilient, nature is resilient, fire is a normal part of it, but what does that actually look like? So people want to learn about that when they're coming to visit. So it really has been a really, really challenging time, but also it's provided plenty of opportunity to tell those stories of resilience, recovery and some positive news.
No, that's great. And Richard, we might ask you a similar sort of question. I mean, likewise, you were hit with sort of the double whammy of bushfires and then COVIDs. How's, I guess, your local community looked to rebuild and recover?
Look, we had the same problem. I think the size and scale down the south coast and through into Victoria and East Gippsland, you're talking about the Bateman's Bay, Tilbury area, there was a burn scar of 80%. Beere Valley was 60%. So you're talking about massive damage on the size and scale that never been seen. And that was a lot of the nature and a lot of those things that actually people were coming there for. You also saw people displaced. So that was a problem there. And then it also went for 6 weeks. Yeah. So it wasn't a normal fires come and go and you start recovery. This was ongoing. They call it a campaign fire, and they hadn't had them before in Australia. So it was a long time coming, and then you had those that were fire damaged and then those that were fire affected. So nothing happened to me, but the road was closed for 3 weeks. So no one could get in or out, so my business suffered. So there was this ongoing effect and this effect right across the community. And I think, that was sort of the challenge for everybody. And again, peak season, some businesses lost up to 70% of annual income. And then the next year, exactly the same happened with COVID. So we saw 2 peak seasons wiped out. So are people doing it tough? Yes, they are. But what we've seen on the flip side now with some of the grants and some of the work, we've actually got improved infrastructure. So we've seen a whole lot of road works that have actually happened that have made a driving experience better all up and down the coast. We've seen telecom improvements. There's now actually no black spots on top of Clyde Mountain going to Canberra, so that's been about 50 years coming, I think. We've also seen now there's new investments coming in. We've seen the HEMS group start talking about coming in to look at infrastructure and look at restaurants and hotels. And we've seen new developments now looking at things like, now that the land's been cleared, what can we do? And things like biking trails and these kind of things are now much more available to be done. And we're seeing councils looking at that. So you're now seeing new opportunities. And I suppose the other side is we're seeing first-time visitors to the region now that we've never seen. So we've got a new opportunity to showcase.
Yeah. And look, I think community is something that we keep hearing again and again, that communities are stepping up. So maybe, Craig, interested how important your local community has been in rebuilding.
Yeah, look, we live in an amazing place. The community is close-knit. We were very fortunate last year. Not many people say this, but 2020 was an awesome year in terms of a Goldilocks weather. Beautiful rainfall, not too hot, not too cold. The natural regeneration in terms of the post-fire recovery, but what that meant on farms and farmers that got hit hard, they literally had record years. So that was really positive for our community. There's still, there's quite a spectrum. There's some people have still a long, long way to go in terms of their rebuild, but others are probably a couple of years ahead of where they thought they might be. But it's certainly been an interesting time, and the bounce in terms of domestic travellers, particularly for independent holiday accommodations, having record times. People are coming back to visit and want to explore and learn more about Australia. And there's a whole lot of people in the room who are domestic travel distribution partners who are learning rapidly about their country, because we were focused on inbound, they were focused on outbound. Now we need each other more than ever. So I've really enjoyed introducing our community of Kangaroo Islands to an Australian travel distribution network who are really passionate about learning and seeing what opportunities there are.
Yeah, and look, I guess one final question for you, Richard. I mean, for both of you, nature and wildlife's a critical part of the tourism offering. So, Richard, I guess interested in, given the devastation in your area, how it's recovered and how you've been promoting that as part of the tourism offering.
Craig touched on a few of these things. I think there is a lot of interest in the rehabilitation of both the flora and the fauna and the wildlife. So there's a lot of people, very consumer interest in what's happening with that. And we've actually got a lot of work, a lot of the government programs, especially the aquariums and zoos one, kept a lot of those smaller parks going and actually helped build new opportunities for people to get involved with rehabilitation programs. So we're seeing nature being used more, promoted maybe in a different way than before. As I said, we're also seeing that idea of being able to interact with nature, with things like biking and other things in nature that are now becoming big and being promoted. And again, very much like Craig had said, the real thing's been telling the story. The real thing has been from the community telling stories to the local tourism operators doing the stories of this is what it is and this is where we are on the path to recovery. And that's been also followed through then by councils, also by the state, and then also through TA's Bushfire Recovery Series. So for us, it's been telling the story of the journey of recovery that has got people able to follow through on that path. And we're seeing, again, that first-time visitor, we're seeing new people, and certainly like this show, being able to open up, and there's some new products from the region up here at ATE as well for people to be able to see. So there's renewed domestic interest, especially in a place probably that could have done with that as well as international interest.
And Bede, I just wanted to say that for us, it was fire, West Australia coastline, cyclone, East Coast flooding. Australia is a country of extremes. We are going to continue to be challenged by these natural events. So we've got to see, how do we learn, how do we become better prepared and communicate quickly, accurately, so that we can minimise the impact and keep tourism as an important part of our broader economy.
Yeah, look, I think that's a great way to wrap up. I think they're comments that resonate with everyone across the industry. So thanks for making the time